5 bells. Stand by all stations.
Attention! All districts. A 5-alarm fire. 5 bells. Move in immediately.
That's it. Let's roll!
Let's go! Firefighters! Presenting Firefighters, the true-to-life story of our unsung heroes who stand ready to ride by day or night against our most murderous enemy, the demon of fire. In just a moment, we'll join Tim Collins and his young brother Jimmy as they begin one of the most exciting fire adventures of their lives, an adventure that takes them behind the scenes of the motion picture and newsreel business, where they become deeply involved in a series of mystery fires which finally lead to the uncovering of one of the strangest and most cunning criminal plots of our times. We'll pick up the threads of this latest fire drama right after this important message. Let's go, firefighters! Let's go to the Central Film Building where Jimmy Collins and his brother Tim, who's on his day off from the rescue company, are waiting in the foyer of the Central Newsreel Company to see the manager, Mr. John Gillette. Jimmy is in charge of motion picture entertainment for his school, and he's gone to the big gray film building to pick up a 2-reel short feature for showing in the school auditorium. This is Jimmy's first look at what goes on behind one of the world's most fascinating jobs, the making of newsreels. And he's eagerly anticipating the behind-the-scenes tour promised him by the manager, Mr. Gillette. What he or Tim do not realize, however, is that this tour will start them on an exciting adventure. Well, as they wait for Mr. Gillette, Jimmy says to Tim,
Nice of you to come down with me on your day off, Tim. I could have handled it myself.
Oh, sure, I know, Jimmy, but I've always wanted to know what goes on in the newsreel business myself. So, when you said Mr. Gillette was going to show you around the place, I thought I'd string along, too.
Gee, it's exciting, isn't it? Learning how the newsreels we see in the theaters are made.
Yeah, but there's another reason why I came along.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Film is one of the most inflammable materials in the world, Jimmy. And fire is an ever-present danger with those who work with film. Hey, you see that sign over there?
Where?
There.
Oh, yeah, I see. Smoking is absolutely prohibited on these premises. Violators are subject to a fine up to $1,000 or up to 2 years imprisonment or both. Wow, they really mean no smoking, don't they?
You bet they do. In a building like this, where inflammable film is stored and handled, one careless person could mean serious disaster.
And so your visit here is really on business, huh?
Well, partly, Jimmy. I'm just interested to see what precautions the film workers take to prevent fires.
There's one I see. Automatic sprinklers in the ceiling.
Yeah, right, and all the floors are of fireproof material.
Oh, this must be Mr. Gillette.
Hello there. John Gillette's my name, manager of Central Newsreel. Sorry to keep you waiting.
Not at all, Mr. Gillette. I'm Jimmy Collins, and this is my brother, Tim. He's a fireman, by the way.
Oh? Well, glad to meet you, Tim.
Same to you, sir.
We're pretty used to seeing you firemen around here. Have one on duty all the time, going around checking on fire hazards.
I guess that's one of your biggest jobs, isn't it, sir? Keeping the danger of fire to a minimum.
You bet it is. Anyone who knows film knows that his life may depend on just how careful he observes fire safety rules. Well, how about a look around the place before you pick up your film?
Could we, Mr. Gillette? I was telling Tim you said we might.
Oh, sure. I'll be glad to give you the grand tour. A lot of interesting things in this newsreel business. Come on, we'll start in the cutting room right back here.
Gee, what a funny smell in here.
Yes, that's characteristic of a cutting room. It's the nitrous fumes given off by the film and highly inflammable, incidentally.
Nice and cool in here, sir. Air-conditioned, isn't it?
Right. Another precaution against fire.
Uh-huh.
Air conditioning not only keeps the temperature at a safe level, but helps carry away the highly combustible fumes.
And the lights, they're all enclosed in heavy glass.
Yep, still another fire preventative. All electrical outlets are protected so that a chance spark or short circuit can't set off a fire.
Well, what's that big barrel for, Mr. Gillette?
That's for scrap film. Film is to be thrown away.
Hey, it's got water in it.
Right. Just one more precaution. If the film should catch fire, why, we just do this. Take this metal cover and slap it tight on the barrel, smothering the fire.
Well, I've got to congratulate you, Mr. Gillette, on the thoroughness of your fire prevention equipment. Really does a fireman's heart good.
Well, you can't be too careful, for even with all our caution, fires do happen. Bad fires that kill or maim men for life. I was in one myself. That's why these scars, and that's one reason I'm such a stickler for fire prevention.
Well, say, You weren't in that elevator fire a few years back by any chance, were you?
Yes, that was the one.
I remember that one well, sir. 2 men died, as I recall.
Yes. I was the only one to come out of it alive.
How did it start, Mr. Gillette?
We were riding down in an elevator in the building here, and one man had a burlap bag of old film. Someone lighted a cigarette, let his hand drop, the cigarette touched the film, and a mass of flame filled the elevator. It was 40 minutes before they got us out.
It must have been horrible.
Yes, it was. Horrible. But it taught me a lesson I'll never forget. Film and fire can mean death. But come on, let's take a look at the screening room next door.
Hey, it looks just like a little theater.
Yes, and that's exactly what it is. The film is projected on this screen here. Uncut film, as we call it, just as it was shot by the cameraman. We look at it, all of it, and pick the scenes we want. And then the film editors and cutters take it into the cutting room we just looked at and put the newsreel story together.
And a day or so later, we see it in the theater.
That's it. Now, through this door...
What's that, Mr. Gillette?
That's the most dreaded sound in the film business, Jimmy. The fire alarm. Come on, let's go.
Yes, sir. Oh, where do you think it is, Mr. Gillette?
Somewhere on this floor. You, Jimmy and Tim, better get down to the ground floor and out of here fast. No telling
Mr.
what...
Gillette, you forget I'm a fireman. I'm staying, but you're right about Jimmy. Look, you get down to the street fast, will you?
Oh, but Tim, why can't I...
No arguments. You can help down there. When the fire companies arrive, direct them up here.
Okay, Tim, be careful.
Don't worry, I'll take care of myself. Now get going. Come on, Mr. Gillette, let's find that fire.
Uh-oh. There's the smoke down this corridor.
Now, what's down here, Mr.
The
Gillette?
film vaults. Big storage rooms where we keep the film. If it ever gets a start in there...
Here, I'll grab this hand extinguisher on the wall here.
Right. And these fire doors, I'll close them off.
Yes, sir.
Keep the fire contained in this one section anyway.
Good. Now, it's the film vault's all right. I can see the flames through the open door.
You're right. Now, who in heaven's name were fool enough to leave the door open? Careful. That film burns white hot.
Yes, sir. Sprinkler system's working, but the fire's got too big a start. Let me get up there with this extinguisher.
Easy, Tim, easy. That film's dangerous stuff.
Minutes later, Engine Company 3-1s and Fire Chief Cody roll up to the Central Film Building to find Jimmy on the sidewalk outside, ready to direct them to the fire. In a matter of seconds, the chief and the men of 3-1s join Tim and Mr. Gillette at the scene of the film vault blaze.
Hey,
All right, men. Bring that fog nozzle up. That's it. Hang right over that overhead pipe. That'll cool off this vault to nothing flat.
Oh, boy, Chief, that does it.
That's the stuff. Better hit the ceiling.
Yeah, there. I think I about got it. Oh, boy, Chief, I never saw anything burn so fast as this film.
Yes, film is highly combustible stuff. I always give a shudder when a call comes in from a film outfit.
Nice work, gentlemen, nice work. The contents of the vault are ruined, but the fire's out, and thank heaven no one's hurt.
Cut the water, Fred. Have the boys overhaul.
Oh, say, Chief, this is Mr. John Gillette, manager of Central Newsreels.
How do you do, sir? These your vaults?
All right, Chief.
What happened here? Any idea what started the fire?
Can't think for the life of me, and it bothers me, too. I always take every possible precaution against fire.
Yeah, I can vouch for that, sir. Mr. Gillette was showing Jimmy and me the safety features of his place when the fire broke out.
What baffles me, Chief, is that the door to this vault was open. I always have very strict orders about keeping it shut at all times.
Well, did you quiz your employees? Could any of them have left it open?
Everyone swears it was closed, and I believe them. They're a pretty dependable bunch.
And yet someone evidently left it open. And more than that, dropped a match or cigarette. I'm afraid we'll have to make an investigation here, Mr. Gillette. If there's someone among your employees who's careless about fire around film, we'd better find him.
I thoroughly agree, Chief. A man like that is hardly better than a criminal. But I'm sure that my men would...
Mr. Gillette! Oh, Mr. Gillette!
Yes? It's the elevator operator. Hello, Tansy. What is it?
I've been looking for you, Mr. Gillette. I wanted to tell you something.
Yes, Tansy?
There was so doggone much noise and excitement with this fire. It slipped my mind for a while. Then I thought maybe it might be important.
Well, what is it, Tansy?
Well, I runs number 2 elevator, you know. And just before the fire bell rung, I stopped on this floor.
Yes?
Well, this feller was standing there jumping around from one foot to the other, see? And jiggling the signal button like he was in an awful hurry.
Go on, Tansy.
Well, I says, joking like, what's the matter, young fella? Going to fire? And he jumps like he was shot and says, come on, take me down fast. So he gets in and then takes him down.
Well, could be something there, but...
Oh, yeah, another thing. He was grunting and groaning like he was terrible in pain. And I looks at him, and one hand was all red and blistered like it had been burned.
Burned hand, eh? Chief, maybe Tansy does have something.
Yes, if Tansy here is right, it looks like your vault blaze is the work of a firebug.
If the old elevator operator story is true, it looks like the Chief, Tim, and Jimmy are right in the middle of another fire mystery. But why should anyone want to set a fire in a film vault, a fire that was sure to spread destruction and even death through the newsreel company? No one except someone with a criminal motive would jeopardize lives in such a way. Just who is behind this film vault fire and why is the problem that will face Chief Cody, Tim, and Jimmy when we join them for the next thrilling, true-to-life episode of The Firefighters. In just a moment, Chief Cody will tell all of you boys and girls how you can help the firefighters in your own hometown. But first, here's a message you ought to hear. And now, here's Chief Bob Cody.
Hello, boys and girls. You know, general cleanups are usually reserved for the spring of the year. But I'd like to reform that practice. I'd like to make every week a cleanup week when it comes to cleaning out old papers and rags and other refuse that makes fire hazards. So give a look down in the basement and up in the attic, will you? Clear out any spot where fire might start. Well, that's all for now. Till I drop in next time, so long.
Fire Chief Cody and the young rookie fireman Tim Collins will be back on the same station the next time you hear...
That's it. Let's roll!
Let's go! Firefighters! Firefighters is a copyrighted feature of William F. Holland Productions.
Five bells. Stand by all stations.
Attention, all districts. A 5-alarm fire. 5 bells, move in immediately.
That's it. Let's roll!
Let's go! Firefighters! Presenting Firefighters, the true-to-life story of our unsung heroes who stand ready to ride by day or night against our most murderous enemy, the demon of fire. In just a moment, we'll join Chief Cody, Tim Collins, and Jimmy at the scene of the mysterious fire in the film storage vault at the Central Newsreel Company. Jimmy and Tim had gone there to pick up some film for showing at Jimmy's school. And while the newsreel made a behind-the-scenes peek at the newsreel business, fire suddenly broke out among the highly inflammable film stored in the company's vaults. Well, when we left them last time, a very significant fact about the fire had just come to light, which I'll remind you about right after this important message. Let's go, firefighters! Let's go to the Central Film Building, where Chief Cody and the men of Engine Company 3-1s have just joined Tim Collins and Jimmy at the scene of the blaze in the film storage vault, a fire that could have spread rapidly through the highly combustible film had it not been promptly discovered. Well, John Gillette, manager of the Central Newsreel Company, which owns the vaults, is deeply mystified as to the cause of the blaze, and right now is telling Chief Cody.
It baffles me, Chief. I can't believe that any of my men were careless enough to drop a match or a lighted cigarette in a film vault. Why?
I can vouch for the fact, Chief, that Mr. Gillette observes all the fire regulations. He was a victim of a disastrous film fire once himself, and is particularly careful.
And still, Mr. Gillette, you say the door to the film vault was open.
Well, that's what puzzles me. Our employees always close it carefully. They know as well as I how dangerously inflammable film is.
And yet someone evidently left it open. And more than that, dropped a match or a cigarette.
Apparently so, but...
Well, I'm afraid we'll have to make an investigation here, Mr. Gillette. If there's someone among your employees who's careless about fire around film, well, we'd better find him.
I heartily agree, Chief. A man like that is no better than a criminal.
A few minutes later, after an elevator operator of the building came forward with some very illuminating information, Chief Cody, Tim, and Jimmy step into the office of the newsreel manager, Mr. Gillette.
That's a very interesting story your elevator operator has to tell, Mr. Gillette. Do you think the man is honest?
Old Tansy? Never knew him to lie before.
He says that just before the fire bell sounded, he picked up a man on this floor who acted very suspiciously.
Yes, that in itself might just have been old Tansy's imagination.
Yes, sir, but he said the man was in evident pain over what looked like a bad burn on his hand.
Yes, that's certainly unusual and probably more than coincidence. Mr. Gillette,
Yes, Chief?
do you have any known enemies?
Not that I know of.
Think hard, because it looks very much like the fire in your vault was deliberately set.
Seems hard to believe. Still, it's easier to believe than that some of my men are guilty of carelessness. But an enemy? No, I can't think of a soul who would do such a thing.
Maybe some old business associate, somebody who held a grudge.
No, I'm sure there's no one.
Tell me, Mr. Gillette, what sort of film was stored in that vault?
Oh, negatives of old newsreels, and sometimes the prints themselves.
Can you think of any reason why someone would want to destroy any of that film?
No, none whatever.
Yet they did destroy it. Every last foot of it.
Yes, a complete loss. And thank heavens this week's newsreel was not yet in the vault.
This week's newsreel, you say, hasn't it been distributed to the theaters yet?
No, the master negative was in the laboratory being printed. The prints go out to the theaters in town tonight for showing tomorrow.
Lucky for you, you saved that much anyway. Well, I guess there's nothing more we can do here.
What's your next step, Chief, in tracking down this arsonist?
The arson squad, Mr. Gillette. They'll be around. Meanwhile, if you learn anything, get any clues, give me a ring quick, huh?
Certainly will, Chief.
Come on, Tim, Jimmy.
Yes, sir.
Let's get down to headquarters where I can relax and think. This case needs some deep studying.
An hour later finds the chief in his office at headquarters, his feet resting on the desk, hands locked behind his head. He is staring with complete concentration at a crack that runs across the ceiling as Tim and Jimmy sit silently watching him. Finally, the chief speaks.
That crack, it gets longer every day. I gotta get it fixed.
Is that what you've been thinking about the last 15 minutes, sir? That crack in the ceiling?
Yeah, that and the film vault fire. Tim,
Yes, sir.
somebody, I'm convinced, wanted the film in that vault destroyed.
Gee, but why, Chief?
That, my boy, is the all-important question. Why?
It was just old film, sir. Old newsreel stories, Mr. Gillette said.
Gosh, it was sure lucky for him the new newsreel wasn't in the vault, or there wouldn't have been any newsreels in the theaters this week.
Yes, that was... Jimmy, my boy,
What, Chief?
you may have put your finger on a very important fact. This week's newsreel release. Now, could the person or persons unknown have wanted to destroy that for some reason?
Well, if they did, sir, they failed.
Yes, and this afternoon they'll read about it in the papers, that this week's newsreel was saved. The newsreel is to be shown in the city's theaters tomorrow.
What are you thinking, Chief?
I'm thinking that we'd better alert the police. If this week's newsreel is the film somebody wanted destroyed...
And if it is distributed tonight to the theaters and the persons unknown know it...
Right. There's liable to be more fireworks as they try to do away with those prints. Now, give me that phone. Sergeant McGurk ought to know about this, and fast. Give me police headquarters.
It's a long shot, this theory of the chief's, that the film the mysterious arsonist wanted to destroy was this week's newsreel, which by a miracle was not in the burned vault. But whether or not he's on the right track, Detective Sergeant McGurk is alerted to watch all theaters that night. Meanwhile, Chief Cody had appointed Tim to assist him in the fire mystery. And right now, the two men are riding back to headquarters in the chief's big car after a conference with McGurk.
What do you think that next move will be, Chief?
By the person or persons unknown?
Yes, sir.
If they're after the prints of that newsreel, I figure they'll go after it at the theaters around town where it's being delivered.
Well, McGurk ought to be able to take care of that.
Yes, with a detective posted at every theater in town, they ought to nip any plot right in the bud.
Of course, sir, if your theory's wrong...
Well, then all this works for nothing. But somehow, Tim, I feel that...
Headquarters calling Chief Cody. Headquarters calling Chief Cody.
Oh, hey, they want you on the radio, sir. I'll take her.
All right.
Chief Cody, go ahead, headquarters.
Call just came in from District 12, corner of Jeffries and 29th. 3 1s and 205 have rolled.
Right, headquarters. Got it.
Corner of Jeffries and 29th. That can't be right.
Well, why not, Chief?
Why, there are no buildings there, nothing but vacant lots. Still, headquarters couldn't be wrong. We'd better roll.
Holy smoke! look, Chief. It's the corner of Jeffries and 29th, all right. It's a truck.
What's left of a truck?
Yes, sir.
Looks like she must have crashed into this pole and caught fire.
Well, the boys about got it under control, I see, sir.
There's Lieutenant Dinkins.
Yes,
we'll
sir.
get the story from him. Oh, Dinkins!
Oh, hello, Chief.
A nasty accident. What happened exactly?
Well, when we arrived, this truck was wrapped around the telegraph pole, blazing like fury. The driver was sitting across the street, sort of dazed-like, rubbing his head.
Was he hurt badly?
Just shaken up. And what a story he had.
Yeah?
Said he was driving along 29th when all of a sudden a big car roars out of Jeffries right for him. He swerved and hit this pole.
Oh, another fool, reckless driver.
More than that, Chief, according to the truck driver. After he's hit the pole, the car stops. A man gets out, lights a cylinder of gasoline, and tosses it right into the truck cab.
Blazing blisters. So that's how she caught fire.
Yep. Driver was dazed, but managed to struggle free while the truck goes up in flames.
Someone deliberately fired it, huh?
Chief, come here.
Oh, yeah, Tim?
Here's the sign on this truck, sir. You can still make it out.
Central Newsreel. Good heaven.
Yes, sir. Looks like our person or persons unknown beat Sergeant McGurk to it.
Yeah, they took care of those newsreel prints before they got to the theaters. Tim.
Yes, sir.
There must be some overpowering reason why someone wants those newsreels suppressed. Why they don't want anyone to see them.
Well, they certainly don't stop at anything.
No. Now, what is it? What could it be? Is there something in this particular newsreel? Something they don't want the public to see?
It looks very much like it, Chief.
By Ginger, we'll find out. The prints are destroyed, but Mr. Gillette ought to still have a master negative of this newsreel.
Yes, sir. What are you going to do?
We're going to get a hold of Mr. Gillette. Take a look at that newsreel. Let's go.
The person or persons unknown behind these criminal film fires must have some overpowering reason for destroying this particular newsreel. What can it be that drives them to arson and even attempted murder? Well, the clue may, as the chief says, be in the newsreel itself. We'll find out when we join the chief and Tim in the next thrilling true-to-life episode of The Firefighters. In just a moment, Chief Cody will tell you, boys and girls, how you can help the firefighters in your own town. But first, here's a message you ought to hear. And now here's Chief Bob Cody with a message for all firefighters. Chief Cody.
Hello, boys and girls. You know, one of the nicest pleasures of home is after supper, lighting a fire in the fireplace and sitting around it with the family. Nothing more cheering whether you're 8 years old or 80. But here's a little word of caution about fires in open fireplaces. Always put a fire screen in front of the grate, especially before going to bed. Many a fire has been started by a spark popping out of the fireplace after the family has retired. So remember this little precaution, won't you? Next time you have a fire in the fireplace, there's nothing more friendly than a fire in an open fireplace. Let's keep it that way in your home. Well, that's all for now. Till I drop in again, so long.
Fire Chief Cody and the young rookie fireman Tim Collins will be back on the same station the next time you hear...
That's it. Let's go!
Let's go! Firefighters! Firefighters is a copyrighted feature of William F. Holland Productions.
Five bells. Stand by all stations.
Attention, all districts. A 5-alarm fire. 5 bells. Move in immediately.
That's it. Let's go!
Let's go! Firefighters! Presenting Firefighters, the true-to-life story of our unsung heroes who stand ready to ride by day or night against our most murderous enemy, the demon of fire. In just a moment, we'll join Chief Cody and Tim Collins at the scene of the truck fire, a fire they were called to on the evening after the near-disastrous film vault fire in the Central Newsreel building. This fire, you recall, began suddenly while Tim and Jimmy We're making a behind-the-scenes tour of the newsreel company with the manager, John Gillette. Later, probing for the cause, it developed that an unidentified man left the newsreel building just before the alarm sounded with a badly burned hand. Well, this led Chief Cody to the conclusion that the newsreel fire may have been deliberately set by someone who wanted to destroy this week's yet unreleased newsreel. Well, we'll learn more about this theory right after this important message. Let's go, firefighters. Let's go to the scene of the truck accident and fire at the corner of Jeffries and 29th, to where the chief and Tim have been called immediately after their conference with Detective Sergeant McGurk. A conference at which the chief told McGurk to be on the alert for the next criminal move on the part of a person or persons unknown who set the film vault fire and who may, after learning that this week's newsreel was not destroyed, attempt to destroy the prints when they are distributed to the theaters around town. Well, right now, at the scene of the truck fire, the chief has learned some very startling information, just as Tim, who has been inspecting the ruins of the truck, calls out.
Oh, Chief, come over here, will you?
Yeah, Tim?
Look, sir. A sign on this truck. You can still make it out.
Central Newsreel. Good heavens.
Yes, sir.
Lieutenant Dinkins was just telling me how the accident happened.
Yes?
Yeah. A big car forced the truck into this pole.
Uh-huh.
Then stopped, and a man got out and threw a cylinder of flaming gasoline into the truck cab.
Oh, good grief. What about the driver?
Well, he got out. The truck and the contents, of course, went up in flames.
Well, it looks like our person or persons unknown beat Sergeant McGurk to it.
Yeah, they took care of those newsreel prints before they got to the theater.
Yes, sir.
Tim,
Yes, Chief.
there must be some overpowering reason why somebody wants these newsreels suppressed. Why they don't want anyone to see them.
Well, they certainly don't stop at anything.
No. Now, what is it? What could it be? Is there something in this particular newsreel? Something they don't want the public to see?
It looks very much like it, Chief.
By Ginger, we'll find out. The prints are destroyed in this truck fire, but Mr. Gillette ought to still have a master negative.
What are you going to do, sir?
I'm going to get a hold of Mr. Gillette. Take a look at that newsreel. Let's go.
In a matter of seconds, Chief Cody and Tim are racing across town in the chief's big red car, sirens screaming, headed for what they hope is a break in the baffling fire crimes that surround the Central Newsreel Company.
Chief, would you do me a favor, sir?
Why, sure, son. What?
Well, I promised Jimmy that if there was any big development in this film fire mystery, I'd let him in on it. He was in on the beginning of it, you know, and...
Oh, like to take him down to the newsreel company with us?
Well, could we, sir? He'd be tickled to death.
Well, sure. Why not? I just cut across on this street to your house.
Ah, thanks a lot, Chief.
That's all right. And, Tim,
Yes, sir?
get headquarters on the radio. Tell them to call John Gillette, the manager of Central Newsreel, at his home.
Right, sir.
Tell him to get a projectionist, a man to run the film. To meet us at the film building in 15 minutes.
Gotcha, sir. Chief Cody calling headquarters. Chief Cody calling headquarters.
Minutes later, with Jimmy sitting in the front seat with them, the chief and Tim pull up in front of the big Central Film building. It is near midnight by now, and the great structure is dark and silent.
Gee, the place is all closed up. How are we going to get in?
Well, don't worry about that, son. Mr. Gillette, the manager, has been notified. Well, he should be here by now.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I guess we beat him, sir. The door's locked.
What do you think you'll see in this newsreel, Chief?
Well, I haven't the slightest idea, Jimmy. All I know is that somebody wants to wipe this particular newsreel off the face of the earth. Do away with it completely.
Yes, sir. And are willing to resort to arson or murder to do it.
And you think there may be some story in this newsreel, some picture that'll tell us why?
Well, that's what we're banking on. Oh. Maybe this is Mr. Oh, yeah. There he is. Here's Mr. Gillette.
Uh-huh.
Good evening, sir.
Oh, hello, Chief. Hello. Jim, Timmy, I came right down. What's up?
Mr. Gillette, we want to take a look at that newsreel. The one that went out to the theaters tonight.
All the prints were delivered, but...
Well, they were on their way to be delivered, Mr. Gillette. They never got there.
What? Never got there. Well, what do you mean?
Your delivery truck was wrecked and burned by some person unknown.
Good heavens. Then all the prints are destroyed.
Yes, I know. But you do keep a master negative, don't you?
Yes, we do.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what we want to look at. I'm convinced that there's something in this particular newsreel that somebody wants suppressed, destroyed. Now, perhaps a look at the reel will tell us why and maybe even who.
Say, Chief, I never even thought of that angle. You may be right. Come on, let's go up to the screening room.
Sitting in the darkened screening room, the chief, Tim, Mr. Gillette, and Jimmy view the negative of the newsreel in question, tensely studying each picture, each story for a clue to the baffling fire crime.
There's no music or narrator's voice on it like there is in the theaters. So why is that, Mr. Gillette?
Well, you're looking at the film before the music and voice are added, Jimmy. That's done later after the prints are made from this master negative.
It's good enough for our purposes. All we want to see is the pictures.
Well, it doesn't seem to be anything in this horse race except horses.
No, I can't see anything out of the ordinary about that. Look at that. Number 2 nosed out number 8 to win.
Yeah. Good race, wasn't it?
Yeah, wasn't it?
Yeah. Now, this next story is an interview aboard an ocean liner that docked the other day. The person being interviewed is Gregory Gates, the famous Hollywood star.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and, oh, by the way, there is sound on this piece. Here, wait a minute, and I'll just turn it up.
Well, how does it seem to be back, Mr. Gates? Oh, great. Europe is very interesting, but there's nothing like your own country. Tell me, Mr. Gates, how do European girls compare with the girls in this country? Well, you might put it this way. I like them both. Thank you very much, Mr. Gates.
Well, that's all there is to that. Now, the next story, as you see, is about laying a cornerstone for a new hospital.
Mr. Gillette.
What is it, Jimmy?
That man, what was he doing?
What man, Jimmy? There's a man laying a cornerstone. Is that what you
No,
mean?
not this story. The interview aboard the ship.
Well, there was just the reporter and Gregory Gates, Jimmy.
No, turn it back, can't you? There was another man in the background behind Gregory Gates, and he was doing something.
That's so. I didn't notice.
Well, you better go back to it, Mr. Gillette. The kid may have something there.
Yes, sure thing. Oh, Mac, run it back to the ship story, will you? There. Now we'll see it again.
Yeah.
See? There they are, standing before the microphone.
Mm-hmm.
How does it seem to be back, Mr. Gates? Oh, great. Europe is very interesting.
There, that man right behind Gregory Gates.
How do
Well,
European girls...
there is a man there.
compare with
Well, what's he
girls in
doing?
this country?
Wait a minute.
Well,
He's got a small satchel in his hand.
And he's putting it in that thing
Thank
there.
you very much.
Yes, the ship's ventilator. You're right, Jimmy.
Good grief. Well, then he disappears behind the ventilator. Say, do you suppose that could
Shut
be
off
why
the
they-
machine, Mr. Gillette. You know, I think we've got our clue.
All right, Mac, cut it. Well, what do you suppose that guy was really doing, Chief?
Mr. Gillette, it looks to me as though he was in the act of committing some crime.
Well, what do you mean, Chief?
Well, now, people don't go around aboard a ship putting suspicious-looking bags in ventilators for no good reason.
Well, do you think there might be a bomb or something in that bag?
Either that or he's trying to smuggle something across the ocean.
Oh, yes, sir, but if it was just an act of smuggling, why would anyone go to the extremes of arson and murder to cover it up?
I know, doesn't seem logical. That's why I'm inclined to think Jimmy's first guess may be right.
Chief, you mean that...
My theory, Mr. Gillette, is that your cameraman accidentally filmed a man in the act of committing sabotage.
What?
Sabotage that, if successful, will cost the lives of hundreds of people aboard that ship.
Well, so that's the motive behind these baffling film fire crimes. Someone realized, evidently, that their act of sabotage was accidentally caught in a routine newsreel story, and that one way to prevent their crime from being made public was to destroy that newsreel. Now, the question is, who is involved in this sabotage plot? And more important, can that ship be warned in time to prevent wholesale disaster? We'll learn the answer to these questions very soon when you join Chief Cody and Tim in the next true-to-life episode of The Firefighters. In just a moment, Chief Cody will tell you, boys and girls, how you can help the firefighters in your own town. But first, here's a message you ought to hear. And now here's Chief Bob Cody with a message for all firefighters. Chief Cody.
Hello, boys and girls. Looking back through my records the other day, I realized that I haven't mentioned our old friends, the electric cords, in a long time. Everywhere you have electrical appliances, you'll find electric cords. And because they are so common and much used in our home, they're also liable to become worn easily, with the bare wire showing. And when that happens, you've got a real danger of fire. So my tip for today is one I've mentioned often before. Be sure to keep electric cords in your home in good repair. Don't let them become worn so that there's a danger of short circuit. Well, that's all for now. Till I drop in next time, so long.
Fire Chief Cody and the young rookie fireman Tim Collins will be back on the same station the next time you hear... That's it. Let's roll! Let's go! Firefighters is a copyrighted feature of William F. Holland Productions.
Five bells. Stand by all stations.
Attention! All districts, a 5-alarm fire. 5 bells, move in immediately.
That's it. Let's go!
Let's go! Firefighters! Presenting Firefighters, the true-to-life story of our unsung heroes who stand ready to ride by day or night against our most murderous enemy, the demon of fire. In just a moment, we'll join Chief Cody, Tim Collins, and his young brother Jimmy in the Central Newsreel Company, where they're seeing a newsreel which the chief hopes may give some clue to the series of fire crimes that have been plaguing the Newsreel Company. First, a mysterious blaze in the company's film vault. Then, that same night, an accident and fire which destroyed Central Newsreel's truck, which was delivering the newsreel in question to the city's theaters. Now, convinced that the clue to these crimes may be found in the newsreel itself, the chief and Collins make a close inspection of the reel. And they discover a startling thing, which we'll learn about right after this important message. Let's go, firefighters! Let's go to the screening room in the Central Newsreel building, where late at night, Chief Cody, Tim, and Jimmy Collins are looking at the newsreel, which the chief hopes will yield a clue as to the reason behind the series of fire crimes that has beset the newsreel company. After Central Newsreel's truck was deliberately wrecked and burned, along with the week's issue of the newsreel, the chief believes that some person or persons unknown are trying to destroy the newsreel in order to suppress some particular story in it. But we find them now in the darkened screening room. They've just run through a film story of an interview aboard a ship when Jimmy suddenly called.
That man, what's he doing?
What man, Jimmy? Is a man laying a cornerstone? Is that what you
No,
mean?
no, not this story. The interview aboard ship.
Oh, well, there was just a reporter and Gregory Gates, the Hollywood star, Jimmy.
No, turn it back, can't you? There was another man in the background, behind Gregory Gates, and he was doing something.
Well, okay, we'll take a look, son. Turn the picture back, projectionist. Let's take a look at that ship interview again. Here, now, let's see. There they are at the ship railing. Let's listen.
Tell me, Mr. Gates, how do European girls compare with girls in this country?
Well, you might put it this way. I like them both.
There, that man right behind Gregory Gates. He's got a small satchel in his hand. And he's putting it in that thing there.
The ship's ventilator. You're right, Jimmy.
And then he disappears behind the ventilator.
Well, shut the machine off, operator.
Say, what do you suppose that guy was really doing, Chief?
Looks to me as though he was in the act of committing some crime, Tim.
What do you mean, sir? How?
Well, people don't go around aboard ship putting suspicious-looking bags into ventilators for no good reason.
Do you think there might be a bomb or something in that bag?
Might be. Or else he's trying to smuggle something.
Oh, but, sir, if it was just an act of smuggling, why would anyone go to the extremes of arson and attempted murder to cover it up?
Doesn't seem logical. That's why I'm inclined to think Jimmy's first guess may be right.
You mean, sir, that
That
you...
the newsreel cameraman accidentally filmed a man in the act of committing sabotage. Sabotage that, well, if it's successful, will cost the lives of hundreds of people aboard that ship.
Oh, good grief.
Gosh, Chief, you mean that if that bag is still in the ventilator, it's liable to blow up the ship?
A very good chance of just that, I'm afraid, son. Come on, let's get down to police headquarters and toss this hot potato into the lap of Sergeant McGurk.
The darkened streets of the city are deserted as the chief's big red car drones its way across town to police headquarters. As they pile noisily up the steps to Detective Sergeant's second-floor office, the chief says,
Yeah, it's lucky McGurk's on duty tonight. There's his door. McGurk?
Good evening, Chief. The Collins brothers, too. What brings you here so late?
You've heard about the Central Newsreel truck, I expect.
Yes. Looks like our friends got the jump on us and picked off those newsreels before they got to the theaters. Any new developments?
Oh, boy, and how?
Yeah, let me in on them.
Well, I got down here just as soon as I could, McGurk. I had a hunch. I followed it up. Well, it looks bigger than any of us thought.
Well, come on, let's hear it.
I figured, after the truck fire, there must be something in that particular newsreel that somebody wanted destroyed, badly.
Some story, a picture in the reel.
Yeah, right. So we got the newsreel manager to show us the master negative. And thanks to Jimmy's sharp eyes here, I think we found it.
Yes, sir. In a shipboard interview, we spotted a man in the background, a guy who wasn't supposed to be in the picture.
And he was putting what looked like a small suitcase in the ship's ventilator.
Right. I may be wrong, but that's the picture I think these crooks are after. A picture that'll convict them of sabotage, if it's made public.
Well, nice work, Jimmy. And if it is a bomb, that ship's in grave danger. Got the name of it?
Yes, the SS Hamilton. What I don't know is whether she sailed or not. The pictures were made day before yesterday.
Well, we'll soon find out.
Good.
Give me the Port Authority. Port Authority? Sergeant Detective McGurk speaking. Tell me, is the SS Hamilton at dock or has she sailed? Yes, I'll wait. If that ship sailed. Hello? What's that? Oh. No, that's all, thanks. She sailed at noon today.
Blazing blisters. And maybe carrying a bomb that will... McGurk.
Yeah?
We've got to get word to that ship, and fast.
You're telling me. Your theory may be all wet, Chief, but we can't take a chance. If it isn't, if a bomb is ticking away in that ventilator, that boatload of passengers is headed for the bottom of the sea.
Oh, Sergeant, isn't there some way we
Of course, we'll radio the Hamilton at sea immediately.
I just hope we're in time.
It's been over 12 hours. Still, well, maybe. Operator, get me Transocean radio. We'll see in a minute. Hello, Transocean. Sergeant Detective McGurk of Police Headquarters. I have to get a message immediately to SS Hamilton. Right. Hamilton. About 12 hours out of port, Europe bound. Now here's the message. Listen carefully. Reason to believe sabotage attempts. No, sabotage. I'll repeat it. Reason to believe sabotage attempt made on your ship. Search all, and I mean all, ventilators, main deck for bag that may contain high explosive charge. Advise. That's all. Now get that off fast, operator. Lives may depend on it.
Across the wide wastes of the dark Atlantic, the Morse signal travels. A series of infinitesimal radio waves carrying across the vast sea a message of urgent warning. Somewhere off Newfoundland, wallowing in the trough of a wave, the SS Hamilton picks it up. In the ship's radio shack, the radio operator reads the signal and copies it down.
Sabotage attempt made on your ship. Gosh. Search all ventilators, main deck for bag that may contain high explosive charge. Gosh, sabotage, high explosive charge. Wait till the captain gets a load of this.
Meanwhile, back in Sergeant Detective McGurk's office, 3 men and a boy sit anxiously waiting as the hour presses on toward 3 a.m., waiting for an answering message from the endangered SS Hamilton.
Tim,
Yes, Chief.
why in blazes don't you and Jimmy go home? No use everybody losing a night's sleep.
I'm not sleepy, Chief, honest.
We're all right, Chief. I'd rather wait and see what the word is. And I'm sure Jimmy wouldn't sleep if I did send him home.
Well, it's been over 2 hours. Should be an answer soon.
At least we got a message through. That's something. We know that so far she's safe.
But for how long? May take him a day or more to make a thorough search of that ship.
Yeah. And while they're searching, that little suitcase keeps ticking away.
Why in blazes don't we hear? I'm going to phone that radio office.
Oh, that's it now. I got it.
Hello? Yes? Speaking. You have? Good. Yeah, read it. Yes? Yes? Holy. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, thanks a lot. Gentlemen, a message from the SS Hamilton. They've made the search, and they found the suitcase.
Yes?
Good.
And in it, they found a charge powerful enough to blow the ship to smithereens.
Well, heavens be praised. We warned them in time.
Yes. The SS Hamilton is safe. But now the question is...
Who put the bomb aboard the ship?
Right, and this morning at dawn we'll begin the biggest manhunt this town's ever seen.
Well, thanks to Chief Cody's hunch and Jimmy's sharp eyes, a sabotage plot that would have sunk a ship and cost hundreds of lives is thwarted. But the job isn't over by any means. The men behind this murderous plot must be rounded up. An adventure we'll all share when we join Chief Cody, Tim, and Jimmy in the next true-to-life episode of The Firefighters. In just a moment, Chief Cody will tell all of you how you can help the firefighters in your own town. But first, here's a message you ought to hear. And now, here's Chief Bob Cody.
Hello, boys and girls. Today I'm going to give you some fire first aid tips. Tips I hope you'll never have to use. But if you do, I want you to be prepared. If your clothes should catch on fire, don't run. Running fans the flames, and don't stand up. Instead, lie down. And if possible, wrap yourself in a rug or blanket or smother the flames. If there are no rugs or blankets handy, roll over slowly, using your hands to beat out the flames. Be on the safe side. Remember these fire first aid tips. Well, that's all for now. Till I drop in again next time. So long.
Fire Chief Cody and the young rookie fireman Tim Collins will be back on the same station the next time you hear...
That's it. Let's roll!
Let's go! Firefighters! Firefighters is a copyrighted feature of William F. Holland Productions.
Five bells. Stand by all stations.
Attention, all districts. A 5-alarm fire. 5 bells. Move in immediately.
That's it. Let's roll!
Let's go! Firefighters! Presenting Firefighters, the true-to-life story of our unsung heroes who stand ready to ride by day or night against our most murderous enemy, the demon of fire. In just a moment, we'll join Chief Cody, Tim, his brother Jimmy, and Detective Sergeant McGurk in the detective's office at police headquarters, where they're waiting for an answer to the radio message McGurk sent to the SS Hamilton at sea, a message they hope will save the ship from a grave danger. Now, you'll remember that after the mysterious fires involving the Central Newsreel Company's current newsreel issue, Chief Cody concluded that some person or persons unknown were trying to suppress and destroy that particular newsreel. An investigation of the newsreel disclosed a startling fact that during a shipboard interview, the newsreel cameraman accidentally got a picture of what appears to be a man in the act of committing sabotage aboard the ship. We'll learn the next thrilling development of this fire crime right after this important message.
Let's go, firefighters. Let's go to the office of Detective Sergeant McGurk at police headquarters, where McGurk, Chief Cody, Tim Collins, and his brother Jimmy are waiting for an answer to their radio message to the SS Hamilton at sea. As you'll recall, the quick observation of Jimmy detected what appeared to be a man in the background of one of the newsreel stories, placing mysterious bag in one of the SS Hamilton's ventilators. Well, now the quartet waits anxiously in the detective's office for word from the threatened Hamilton.
Tim,
Yes, Chief.
why in blazes don't you and Jimmy go home? No use of everybody losing a night's sleep over this thing.
Oh, I'm not sleepy, Chief, honest.
We're all right, Chief, and I'd rather wait and see what the word is, and I'm sure Jimmy wouldn't sleep if I did send him home.
It's been over 2 hours. There should be an answer soon.
Well, at least we got a message through. That's something. We know that so far the Hamilton is safe.
But for how long? May take a day or more to make a thorough search of that ship.
Yeah. And while they're searching, the little suitcase that guy planted in the ventilator is ticking away.
Why the blazes don't we hear? I'm going to phone that radio office.
No,
That's it. Got it. Hello? Yes? Speaking. You have? Good. Read it. Yes? Yes? Holy. Yeah, I got it. Thanks a lot. Gentlemen, a message from the SS Hamilton. They've made the search, and they found the suitcase.
Yes?
And in it they found a charge powerful enough to blow the ship to smithereens.
Heaven be praised, we warned them in time.
Yes, the SS Hamilton is safe. Now the question is...
Who the saboteur is? Who put the bomb aboard the Hamilton?
Right.
What do you propose, McGurk?
The biggest manhunt the city's ever seen. This morning at dawn, we go to work rounding up every suspicious character we can lay our hands on.
And so the dragnet goes out. What started out as a routine fire in a film vault becomes one of the biggest manhunts in the city's history. Police scour the waterfront, picking up every person who might shed some light on the activities of a criminal ring that doesn't stop at anything, even wholesale murder, to gain its ends. Although the case is now in the hands of the police, Chief Cody, Tim, and Jimmy keep a close watch on the developments. And late the next day, while gathered in the chief's office to learn what progress McGurk and the police have made, the phone rings.
This may be McGurk now with some word.
Yes, sir.
Chief Cody speaking. Yeah? Oh, hello, Gillette. What's that? Yeah? Huh? Right. Well, thanks for calling. We'll be right over.
What is it, Chief?
Any word on the sabotage case?
John Gillette, manager of Central Newsreel, says he may have something hot. He's called McGurk and wants me to come over, too.
Well, could Tim and I go too?
Oh, now,
Well,
Jimmy.
sure, why not? You Collins are in this as deep as anyone. Come on.
Yippee! Thanks, Chief.
We'll go in my car. From the way Gillette talked, what he has is really hot.
Gathered in John Gillette's office in the Central Newsreel building a few minutes later, the chief, Tim, and Jimmy listen as McGurk questions the newsreel manager.
All right, Gillette. Tell me exactly what happened.
Well, as I say, I am not sure that anything has happened, but, well, there were 2 phone calls.
Right.
One was from a man who said he was the manager of the Bijou Theater. He asked what happened to this week's newsreel.
And you said it was destroyed in a fire.
That's right. Then he asked, don't you have a master negative? And couldn't I have other prints made?
And?
I told him, yes, I could.
And did he order another print of the newsreel?
No, he didn't. He just said thanks and hung up.
Nothing so unusual about that phone call as I can see.
No, except that 5 minutes later, the real manager of the Bijou walked in my office.
What do you mean, real manager?
Well, the other was a phony. The real manager said he never called.
Your second phone call? You said there were 2?
Well, this is the one that's really got me guessing, McGurk. About a half hour ago, I get this call from what is supposed to be the laboratory across town that does my printing from the master negative.
Yes?
Well, the man says, this is the lab. Understand you want to get some more prints made up of the newsreel you lost in the fire.
What did you say?
Well, nothing. I just let him talk. He says, if you'll send the master negative over, I'll run some more prints off right away.
What's so strange about that call?
Well, just this. The lab never calls me on a thing like that. It's always me that calls them.
I see. And you think...
I think this second call is a phony, too.
Sounds mighty like it, McGurk.
What did you tell him?
I told him I had to check with the theaters first to see how many prints I wanted. Stalling, you see. And then I called you, Sergeant.
Glad you did.
He said he'd call back.
Good. Jimmy,
Yes, Sergeant?
how'd you like to be a messenger boy for about half an hour?
Sure, Sergeant. Hey, what for?
What are you cooking up, McGurk?
When this so-called lab man calls back, I want you, Gillette, to tell him that you're sending the master negative over right away.
With Jimmy?
Don't worry. He'll get plenty of protection.
Then you think that somebody's still after that master negative?
Of course. You see, here's the way I figure it. First, they call to find out if there's still one in existence. Then, another phony call asking to have it sent over to the lab.
Oh, boy, how they want that newsreel.
Well, we won't disappoint them. We'll send the negative over. How about it, Jimmy? You want to play messenger?
What? Sure, Sergeant.
Wait a minute. I don't know about that, McGurk. If those crooks are at the other end, I don't want
He'll
Jimmy...
be tailed by us, don't worry. I want it to look good, like we're playing it straight. And with Jimmy carrying the film, it will look legitimate.
It'll be all right, Tim, I'm sure. With McGurk close behind.
My hunch is that whoever's behind this sabotage attempt knows the evidence that will convict them in that newsreel. They also know that without that evidence, we haven't got a chance to convict the guy who put that explosive in the ship's ventilator.
Okay, McGurk. It's your show.
I'll get it.
All right.
Hello? Oh, yes. Yes, I did. I'll need 12 prints. Right. I'm sending the master negative over right away. Yes, by messenger. Right. That was him.
Okay. Give the film to Jimmy, and let's go.
10 minutes later, the figure of a boy is seen swinging along across town street, a metal can of film in one hand. He walks slowly, casually, and from the way he walks and acts and the clothes he wears, he looks like any other messenger boy who daily makes his way through the city streets. But for one man who stands now in a doorway searching the crowded street with dark, quick eyes, this messenger with a can of film in his hand is 1 in 1,000. The boy gets opposite the doorway suddenly.
You, kid.
What do you want?
The film. Give me the film, quick.
A gun?
Yeah, gun, and don't try and...
All right, Jimmy, I got him.
You dirty little... You were tailed. Now you're done.
Rad Raider. I wondered if you weren't mixed up in this.
All right, McGurk, you win. But I tell you one thing. I ain't the only guy in this.
I'm pretty certain of that, Raider. And you're going to have a chance to tell us just who is behind this plot.
Hey, you all right, Jimmy?
Sure, there was nothing to it.
Good boy, Jimmy. You walk down that street like a soldier.
Nice job, all right, Jimmy. Thanks to you, we've cracked one of the biggest sabotage plots in the city's history. Come on, Raider. I want a nice, long talk with you.
Well, it must have taken a lot of courage for Jimmy to walk down the street with that film, almost certain that he would be intercepted by one of the sabotage gang. But with Detective Sergeant McGurk right behind him, there was little real danger. And now, thanks to Jimmy's help, the sabotage plot that began with a small film vault fire has been broken up. There'll be more adventures involving our friends Chief Cody, Tim, and Jimmy in the next true-to-life episode of The Firefighters. In just a moment, Chief Cody will tell you, boys and girls, how you can help the firefighters in your own town. But first, here's a message you ought to hear. And now here's Chief Bob Cody with a message for all firefighters. Chief Cody.
Hello, boys and girls. Are you going to take a drive into the country soon? I mean into real country with plenty of woods and trees and wildlife. Well, if you are, here's a mighty valuable tip. When traveling through country where there are woods and forests, do these 4 things. 1, put out every match. 2, drown out with water every fire. 3, see that smokers use a trip. 4, again for smokers, crush out every cigarette. See that these 4 things are done religiously, and you'll help prevent one of the worst scourges we have in this country, forest fires. Millions and millions of dollars worth of potential lumber go up in smoke every year because folks do not observe these 4 simple rules. So help keep the forests of our country green growing, won't you? Help prevent forest fire. Well, that's all for now. Till I drop in again next time. So long.
Fire Chief Cody and the young rookie fireman Tim Collins will be back on the same station the next time you hear...
That's it. Let's go!
Let's go! Firefighters!
Firefighters is a copyrighted feature of William F. Holland Productions.